Welcome to the Simply Pediatrics Podcast, simplifying holistic healthcare for infants and children. We're so glad you're here. Join Jennifer Zethner, holistic pediatric nurse practitioner and holistic mom of 3 on a mission. Listen in as she shares the answers to the most asked questions from parents in her practice every day and offers parents practical strategies and actionable steps to support their child's health and well-being. Enjoy this insightful episode of the Simply Pediatrics Podcast and stay tuned for more information at the end of the podcast.
Hi, I'm Jennie Zethner. That's right, I'm here in my car. I don't know about the rest of you, but I find sitting in my car to be very peaceful. It happens to be one of the quietest places I have in my life. I have 3 children. I work full time. I'm busy like the rest of you, and I really would like to share information, and doing it from my car is most convenient. So I'm going to ask you to please forgive if there's any commotion behind me, any beeping, any dogs barking, ambulances, fire trucks, etc. I'll do the best I can to find quiet places. I assure you I will never be driving my vehicle when I speak to you. I will always be pulled over and parked. I am typically parked waiting for one of my children to come out of an event or something. So that is what I'm doing with my time here. And I look forward to sharing information with you. And again, forgive me for being a little unprofessional being here in my car, but I hope it works. And with that, let's get started.
Today's episode, Constipation.
Hello and welcome. I'm so happy to be here with you today. We are talking about constipation, specifically in children over the age of 1. I will have another podcast speaking more specifically about children under the age of 1, but for today, it's going to be for our over the age of 1 children. All right. So the first thing to think about when we have constipation is, first of all, what is constipation? So families use that word and they often have different meanings for it. So to me, constipation is not having a regular bowel movement daily, so skipping days, or having difficulty going, so straining and pushing, and children really having a rough time having a bowel movement. All right, so that's sort of my loose definition of constipation. There's varying degrees in there, of course. There's more severe and there's less severe. But children should have, everybody should have a bowel movement once or twice a day. It should be brown, it should be log-shaped, it should be, Play-Doh-like or, inconsistency, because many of these children are still in diapers. So if you're opening up a diaper, it's a Play-Doh-like inconsistency, or it's formed when it drops into the toilet, all right? So I get graphic when I ask my children these questions and they don't really like it. But I do encourage families to speak with your kids, start at young ages talking about these intimate conversations about bowel movements so that they can describe them to you. And if you start early talking about it, they won't be embarrassed either. They'll understand that this is part of our intimate conversations in our household. And, our bowel movements really are a good reflection on our health. So again, we should be going once, if not twice, 3 times a day. Really, we're supposed to be going after every meal. And if we are not, there are varying degrees of constipation. So why do we get constipated? Why do children get constipated? One of the number one reasons we see constipation in children over the age of 1, particularly at that 1-year mark between 1 and 2, is the introduction of milk as a beverage to children. They go from their formula or their breast milk to milk, and that often is very overwhelming on the system, and is one of the most common causes that we see constipation. It's a big shift at 1-year-old to go over to whole milk, and many children start consuming large quantities of milk, and parents quickly within the first few months after introducing milk will have that concern that their child is no longer having regular bowel movements and or in fact is having a really hard time and straining. And so the solution is to remove the dairy from the diet. But that is one of the most common reasons, is diet, and dairy would be the number one reason, the number one food that we would take out of the diet of a child who's having constipation. Other foods that cause constipation are dry foods. So anything packaged, really. So floury, sweets, breads, anything processed is going to cause the body's digestive system to slow down. In addition, cold and raw foods, especially in our younger kids and particularly in the wintertime, Our stomachs are like an oven. So in Chinese medicine, the stomach is like an oven. So if you put cold and raw stuff in there, even if it's our healthy fruits, sometimes it does the opposite. So just be aware of that. Many families think the opposite, but too much cold and raw things can be overwhelming to the system and can cause a sluggish digestive system, which can lead to constipation. So floury foods, raw foods, cold foods, and dairy are our main culprits when it comes to foods that cause constipation. And we do want to look at the diet of children who are having constipation. We don't want to just start giving medicine. There's a lot of different medications that are prescribed to children to, help them have bowel movements. And not having a bowel movement and having constipation is the body's way of letting you know something's going wrong. And we don't want to just give a medication, or quite honestly, we don't even want to give natural remedies. There's many herbs that help us and some vitamins that help us to have a bowel movement, but I also don't encourage that. I mean, once or twice is okay, but we don't want to give our children something to help them to go to the bathroom so much as we want to identify what is causing the constipation to begin with. That's really important. So the main, the first work to do is to figure out what is causing the constipation. And then, stay away from the medication that, produces bowel movements. And then even still staying away from the natural remedies that can help us, because we want to identify the source first. Other reasons why children get constipated is they're not getting enough water. Water is really important. I strongly encourage families when they start giving fluids to their children, when they start eating, to offer water. Get their palate acclimated to water first. So important for our bodies that we're drinking enough water. And not juices. So get them acclimated to water, and you'll be happy to see them drink the water. If they're first given juices, they'll be unhappy to drink water as their main beverage. So encourage the water first and foremost. And that is one of the other reasons why we'll see constipation. And that's common in our school age children, because unfortunately in school, it's not strongly encouraged that kids drink water, right? Many of them aren't even allowed to carry a water bottle around. So be mindful. They could go through a long day of not getting enough water. And by the way, a good tip to know if your child is getting enough water is to check their urine, or tell them to let you know, what does their urine look like. If their urine is real dark yellow, you're dehydrated and you need to go have a big glass of water. And that's a good rule to start teaching children that are school age, because then they'll understand that they need to go, drink some more water. Another reason why we see children get constipated is around the time where they start to potty train, right? So toilet training starts anywhere between like 2 to 3 years old or so. And what happens then is they can become afraid of having a bowel movement. That can be a scary time for them. Or they can have too much stress from their parents and they'll start to withhold. So we can have a history of a child who had regular bowel movements, no problems, eating foods, was having no issues, and it was right at that toilet training age where they started withholding, and that can start a whole cascade of what we would call constipation, but it's actually stool withholding, where they become really afraid to go, and then they hold it, and then by the time they go, it's so large that it hurts them, and then it just becomes cyclical, right? And then they hold it more, and that can be really disastrous for some families. It can be very stressful. So when we start potty training our toddlers, be very mindful that you don't want to put too much stress on them. In addition, another tip is for all children who are toilet training, if they are having a bowel movement and sitting on the toilet, their legs cannot be dangling. Our feet need to be on something, on the floor, or on a stool, in order to be in the correct position to have a bowel movement. So please, parents, don't sit your little one on a toilet with their legs dangling, because they will be afraid because they don't feel balanced, and they'll also have a really hard time having a bowel movement that way. So avoid laxatives. Laxatives is one of the main medications that's prescribed. If you go to a GI doctor and you tell them that your child has constipation, for the most part, they're going to prescribe a laxative. And it's really just such a slippery slope. They become reliant on it, and it can be really difficult for children then to get regulated, for them to have a sense of what it feels like to have a bowel movement, because the laxative produces a bit of urgency. So I discourage that. We want to figure out what is the foods that's causing the issues to begin with. Other issues that are associated with constipation, and the reason why we want to get to the root cause of it, is that children who are chronically constipated, not having regular bowel movements, maybe they're not straining, but they're not going except a couple times a week, they often have chronic congestion, colds, and skin issues like eczema or other rashes. And the reason for this is that when we're not getting rid of toxins on a regular basis through our bowel movements, those toxins kind of come out through other routes like nasal congestion, mucus, and also skin issues. Very common to see that occur in children especially. So another reason to kind of pay attention to your child's bowel movements, because for their overall health, it is optimal that they're having at least 1 to 2 bowel movements each day. So what can we do for our little one when they are having difficulty having a bowel movement as we work through to try to figure out what's causing the constipation to begin with? There are some over-the-counter supplements and some tools we can use to assist them. For starters, craniosacral therapy, which can be done by a chiropractor, is very, very helpful. And often families leave a chiropractor after an adjustment and all of a sudden the constipation is just cured. So certainly the first step before you even start looking at the foods is to have an adjustment. If the spine is even slightly out of alignment, the blood and the nerve endings from that area of the body aren't optimal. And if that part is connected to our digestive system, then you will have some difficulty with children having bowel movements. So certainly see your local chiropractor, have an adjustment. Craniosacral therapy is what I recommend from your chiropractor if your child's having difficulty with constipation. Another tool we can use is Epsom salt baths. Again, that's Epsom salt is like a magnesium that we put into the bathtub that can assist our child with having, it's a gentle laxative, if you would, because it kind of seeps into our skin and can assist a child in having a softer bowel movement. Again, we don't want to rely on these, but as we're trying to figure out why our child has the constipation, we can assist them with some supplements. Other supplements that you can offer to your child as you work through their constipation is tea. Tea of fennel, tea with ginger or catnip, chamomile tea. All of these are soothing to our digestive system and can assist our children in having a bowel movement. Another wonderful option you can try with your child is castor oil packs kind of placed onto their belly. That does assist the body with kind of movement and kind of getting the intestines flowing and getting a bowel movement produced. So that is another sort of gentle, easy, non-invasive method to assist your child with having a bowel movement. I know constipation can be very, very frustrating for families. Start with the diet. Start understanding what may or may not be affecting their gut. See what has changed. Make sure they're not having the traditional child, diet of just floury all day long. It's real easy to look back and be like, whoa, they had toast for breakfast and mac and cheese and pizza and ice cream. And just that alone in one day will cause a child to be constipated. And when they're real little, one bout of constipation can occur and just cause them to start withholding, and then it can become like a vicious cycle. So once you figure it out and take out the foods that are causing this, it can correct itself very easily. The supplements are there for you to utilize while you're figuring out what's causing the constipation. And I will have some links at the end of this podcast to assist you further. I hope this information was helpful. Remember, parenting is a journey and you're doing an amazing job. Stay curious and keep learning, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining Jennie on the Simply Pediatrics Podcast. We hope that the valuable information she shared in this episode will inspire and empower you on your holistic parenting journey. If you would like to learn more about Jennie, her Simply Pediatrics practice, or anything that she spoke about today, please check the show notes that accompany this podcast and you'll find all the links and resources you need. You can also sign up for the Simply Pediatrics mailing list so that you receive Jennie's weekly newsletters packed with vital information and holistic parenting journeys. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider giving this page a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any episodes. And don't forget to connect with us by sharing your thoughts in the comments section below. Follow Simply Pediatrics on any and all of the social media platforms. And if you're interested in an in-person or a virtual appointment with Jennie, please see the contact details in the show notes. Stay tuned for more episodes packed with a wealth of powerful information to support you on your holistic parenting path. See you next time.